Model Making Guru is sponsored by emodels.co.uk, your one-stop shop for all your model making needs. emodels.co.uk. Make something awesome. Hey everyone, Foxx here. I thought I would start a series of short videos explaining things, and as I always wanted to be an astrophysicist, I decided to call them Foxx Explaining Things. In this video, I want to discuss something that is actually really straightforward, but that most people get confused about: model kit scales. To most model makers, scale is straightforward, but there are many folks who just don't get it. So I thought I would sort this out. Just a warning, there will be numbers. The scale of a model tells you how your model relates to the real thing, i.e. how much smaller or larger is your model compared to the actual thing it is a model of. Let's take a look at both a thing and a model of a thing to understand. This is the Millennium Falcon. In real life, and I am using air quotes there, the Falcon is around 34 meters long. This is a model of the Millennium Falcon, and it's around 47 centimeters long. The model is 1/72nd scale. This means that the model is 72 times smaller than the real thing. Every centimeter on the model represents 72 centimeters on the real thing. 34 meters is 3,400 centimeters, divided by 72 is 47.2 centimeters. Now let's add another scale. This is an even smaller Falcon model. This is 1/144th scale. That means that everything is 144 times smaller than the real thing, making this model around 23 centimeters. 3,400 centimeters divided by 144 is 23.6 centimeters. So you can see, scale is really easy to get your head around. The first number, usually 1, unless you are building something bigger than real life, stands for a unit of measurement on your model. 1 inch, 1 foot, 1 meter, it doesn't matter. The second number stands for the difference between that unit on your model and the same unit on the real thing. Or, more simply, the difference in size between the model and the real thing. Easy. Okay, now we are going to do some math. Let's say you are making a 1/35th scale diorama and wanted to make, for some strange reason, a cube that in real life would be 1 meter high, 1 meter wide and 1 meter deep. How big would it need to be? Easy. The scale is 1/35, so simply measure the dimensions, in this case 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter, and divide them by 35. 1 meter is 100 centimeters, so 100 divided by 35 is 2.86 centimeters. Voila! Your 1/35th scale cube should be 2.86 centimeters by 2.86 centimeters by 2.86 centimeters. No problem. Some of you get stuck when mixing different models together, like building a tank and wanting to add a figure from a different kit. What scale figure? That's easy. Just make sure the scales are the same. A 1/35th figure will look correct with any 1/35th scale vehicle because they are both the same scale. 1/35th or 35 times smaller than real life. A 1/72nd figure would look dumb because the vehicle is 35 times smaller than real life and the figure would be 72 times smaller than real life. Unless you are scratch building, it doesn't really matter what the scale means, as long as the scales match. A lot of people overthink it, and it can get frustrating to watch, like someone who goes abroad and insists on figuring out how much things are in their own currency when they pay for things in the local currency and take half an hour to buy things, and oh my life, that drives me nuts. Just give the guy the money already, for crying out loud. Ugh! So, don't overthink it. 99% of the time, people who understand scale don't even think about it, unless they are mixing and matching kits. Now, I won't go into some of the scales here, such as the scales used by tabletop games, as they often refer to scales in a different way, and that's a subject for a different time. I also won't go into model railway scales here because, honestly, there are about 1 million of them for different parts of the world, they are not standardised, and ultimately, model railway scales are kind of confusing because some ByteSpark decided that it would be better to list the scales as letters rather than the actual scale because obfuscation, and in reality, they all relate to totally random scales. And no one really agrees on what scales the letters actually represent. There are like 3 different 00 scales and The original inventor was probably British. Sorry, rest of the world. Having said that, us model makers can find model railway accessories useful, vehicles, figures and so on, that can be used in our builds, so it's worth reading up about model railway scales on the Wikipedias. The last thing I want to touch on is something that most people get wrong, but that is not super important. Large scale versus small scale. Here are 2 Eagle transporters. One is 44 inches long, the other is 2.57 centimeters long. Take a guess which one is small scale. Chances are you said the small one. Wrong. The phrases large scale and small scale actually denote the difference between the 2 numbers in the scale. That means something that is 1/6 scale, 6 times smaller than the real thing, is actually small scale because the difference between the numbers is small. 1 unit on the model represents 6 units on the real thing. Whereas a model in 1/1400 scale, 1400 times smaller than the real thing, is large scale because 1 unit on the model represents 1400 units on the real thing. Large scales are often used for smaller subjects, which results in larger models, whereas, confusingly, small scales are usually used for larger subjects, which results in smaller models. Yes. So, going back to the Eagle, the 44-inch model is actually 1/24th scale, 24 times smaller than the vehicle it represents, and therefore small scale because the difference between the model and the actual object is small. The tiny 2.75 centimeter long Eagle is actually 1/384th scale, 384 times smaller than the real thing, and so is large scale because the difference between it and the real thing is large. It's also undeniably cute. So, that just about does it. I hope this has helped you understand scale a little bit more. I'll record more of these little explainers as I think of more things that trip people up, but if you would like me to cover something, drop a suggestion in the comments below. Adios amoebas!